We begin today at the Mishnah on Daf Mem Zayin Amud Aleph. Zok Heilige Mishnah, Mi Shenizrak Olav Echad Min Adamim. A Nazir, that one of the bloods of the three karbanos that he has to bring, a Chatas, Oila, and a Shlomim, so it was sprayed on him already. And then Vinitma, and then he became Tameh before the other two karbanos were brought. Rabbi Eliezer says, Seiser Esakayel. He has to nullify everything. Now, simply it would sound like what he's saying is that he has to start his Naziris all over again. But the Gemara will explain that what this means is that he has to be Seiser. This carbon that he just brought is not good, even though that carbon was brought before he became Tameh. But because he became Tameh before he brought the other two karbanos, so he has to bring everything over again. This is based on Rabbi Eliezer's opinion that we learned in the Mishnah at the end of Daf Mem Vav Amud Beis. Rabbi Eliezer says that a Nazir doesn't end his Nazirus until after he brings all the karbanis and he cuts his hair, he does everything. So therefore Rabbi Eliezer says, if in the middle you become Tameh, so then basically you became Tameh when your Nazirus didn't end yet. You're in the middle over here. So therefore you're going to have to bring these karbanis over again.
What about the last one, the last carbon that he has to bring?
No, so he has to bring them over again, correct. The point there is even the first carbon as well, that he brought before he was Tameh, he also has to bring that one over again. However, the Chachamim say that Yavi Shar Karbanaisav V'yitar. The first carbon that he brought, so he brought that when he was Tahir, so that's not a problem, that's good. The other two karbanis, so he has to become tired again. He has to wait 7 days to become tired, because a Nazir can't bring his karbanis while he's Tameh. So let him become tired, and then he'll bring the other karbanis. Amrullah, the Chachamim said to Rabbi Eliezer, Maise b'Miriam atarmud. There was a story with Miriam that came from Talmud. Shenizrak alel echad min adamim. This exactly happened to her, that the bloods of one of the karbanis was sprayed on her after she was concluding her Naziris. Now, and then right then they came and told her, Albita Shahisa Musakenis, about her daughter that was mamish about to die. V'halcha, so she ran, she went, Umatza Shemesa, and she found that her daughter had passed away. And she became Tameh there, right in the middle, after the first carbon, before the other two karbanas that she still has to bring. Amru Chachamim, and the Chachamim said, Tavi Shar Karbanisa, she has to bring the other two karbanas she didn't bring yet, V'titar, and she'll be tired. In other words, she doesn't have to go back and bring the other carbon from before she became Tameh. So this is a raya to the Chacham's opinion. Zok the Gemara Katani in the Mishnah it says.
In this case of the story, she had to wait 7 days.
She what? Yeah, even before, in the Chacham's opinion as well. You have to wait 7 days. The halacha by the carbon of a Nazir is the Nazir has to be tahir while his karbanis are brought. So yeah, Chachamim that say that you just bring the other karbanis, you have to first wait 7 days and then you bring the other karbanis. Yeah. Zok the Gemara Katani. So we learned in the Mishnah Rabbi Eliezer that if he became Tameh after bringing the first carbon, so it's Seiser everything. Now what does Seiser Esakal mean? Frak the Gemara, V'ha'amar Rabbi Eliezer, didn't Rabbi Eliezer say that Kol Achar Melois, that any time the Nazir becomes Tameh after he filled already all the days of his Naziris. He's on the 30th day, let's say, right? And now he's already bringing his Karbanis. So if that happens, then Shiva Seiser. So you only have to wait 7 days because he's Tameh, and he has to wait 7 days to be able to bring his Karbanis. But you're not Seiser the whole Naziris and you have to start over again. So the Gemara was thinking, as I said before, that when it says in the Mishnah Seiser, it means you have to start your whole Naziris over again. How could that be? Rabbi Eliezer says, on the last day, even if your Naziris didn't end yet, but you don't have to start your Naziris over again if you become Tameh then. Amarav, so Rav explains, my Seiser, Nami, the Ka'amar Rabbi Eliezer, when the Mishnah says, according to Rabbi Eliezer, that you Seiser, that you nullify your Naziris, all it means is Seiser Karbanaisav. It means that you have to bring all the Karbanis over again. If you already brought one carbon before, even though you were tired then, you have to bring the Karbanis over again. You see this also in the Lashon of the Mishnah itself, that it doesn't refer to all the days of the Naziris, but it just refers to the Karbanes, the Katani, because when the Chachamim argue, what does it say? The Chachamim say, Tavi Shar Karbanesev V'titar. That no, she doesn't have to bring the other carbon over again that she brought before. She just brings the other karbanis that, or he or she brings the other karbanis that were not brought yet because he became Tameh, and then it's good. You don't have to bring the other carbon over again. So Shema Mina, so you clearly see that the argument here is regarding the karbanis. It's not an argument regarding all the days of the Naziris. And the same thing also you see from the next part of what Chachamim said, the story. And here the Gemara quotes the whole story over again. The story with Miriam, that the bloods of one of the karbanis was sprayed on her oboe, or sprayed on, say over here, Nizra Kaleha, for her. I mean, it doesn't mean on her. I mean, it means on the Mizbeach, that it was sprayed on the Mizbeach, oboe, vayidiyua, and they came and they told her, Al-Bitta Shaisim Musakenes, her daughter was about to die, V'al Matzah Shemesa, and she became Tameh. And here, what does the Mishnah say? Tavi Shar Karbaniseh. She just brings the other karbanis and she's tired. So again, we see in the Lashon of the Chachamim, they're not saying, that she doesn't have to count her whole Naziris over again. That's for sure. Even Rabbi Eliezer agrees to that. But what he was saying is, even the carbon the argument is about the carbon brought before she became Tameh. Does she have to bring that carbon over again? And Chacham said, let her bring the other karbanis and she'll be tired. So Shema Mina, we see that the argument is just about the karbanis, but not about all the days of the Nesiris. Hadran aloch shleisha minim. This is the conclusion of the sixth Perek of Masechta Nazir. Okay, so we begin. Right. So we begin the seventh Perek of Masechta Nazir, and this Perek will discuss be'ikid the third halacha of the Nazirus that we didn't discuss yet. We discussed the halachas of hayotzim and hagefen. You're not allowed to eat anything that comes from a grapevine. We discussed the halachas of the taglachas, the cutting of the hair, different details. There's the isser of cutting the hair, the mitzvah of cutting the hair, if the Nazir is tied, if the Nazir is tameh. And now we learn about the third halacha of the Nazir, which is that he's not allowed to become tameh to a mace. Sagt der Heilige Mishneh, Kohen Gadol v'Nazir. Both a Kohen Gadol and a Nazir as well, ein mitamin l'kreveyim, are not allowed to become tummy to a mace, even if it's a close relative. Aval mitamin l'meis mitzvah. But if it's a mes mitzvah, then they are allowed to become tummy. So we had before in the Gemara, a mes mitzvah is a situation where there's nobody else there available to bury this person. So over here, because of COVID habrius, so the Torah was matter for them to go and bury this meis mitzvah. Or some other Mefarshim define it as, it's not really a heter, it's the Torah never applied the Isser in a case of a meis mitzvah. Well, the Gemara will bring later the limudim for this. It's the whole Isser of becoming Tameh does not apply lechatchila if it's a meis mitzvah. What if they were walking on the way? Meaning the Kohen and the Nazir are both walking together. Umatzu meis mitzvah, and they encounter a meis mitzvah. So the question now is, who is the one that should bury the meis mitzvah? Rabbi Eliezer yitame Kohen Gadol v'al yitame Nazir. Rabbi Eliezer says the Kohen Gadol should become tamei to bury the meis mitzvah, but not the Nazir. The Chachamim ma'imrim, and the Chachamim say yitame Nazir v'al yitame Kohen. V'al yitame Kohen Hedyot actually. And Chachamim say the Nazir should become Tameh, and even if the Kohen was a Kohen Hedyot, nevertheless, this Kohen Hedyot should not become Tameh. Yeah, the Mishnah here will bring the Svaras for their Machlaikis, as we'll see in a second here. But behemshach to what I said before, that some say that really by a meis mitzvah there's lachatchila no iser at all to be metamet, not for the Nazir and not for the Kohen Gadol. So therefore, according to that, the pshat over here, the Mishnah is that really either one, whether the Nazir or the Kohen is metamet to the mace, you're not over on any iser. And even in other words, Rabbi Eliezer and Chacham are arguing who should be metamet. But what's if the Nazir goes and is metamet according to the opinion that says that the Kohen should have? Or vice versa, according to the other opinion. It doesn't matter. You're not over on any Isser because by Meis Mitzvah, there's a Heter or L'chatchila, there's no Isser. You're allowed to go be Matame. The only question is, Midrabanan, they didn't want that you should be in a matzav of Tumah. So the question is, who is it better that should go and be Matame? But either way, you're not going to be over any Isser. You're not going to get any Malchus for this. Okay, but there is another opinion though. There are other Achrayim that say, the Mechas Chinuch says this, and others that say that no, that the argument here between Rabbi Eliezer and the Chachamim, who should go ahead and be Metame, so it means that if the Kohen is the one that's supposed to be Metame, and the Nazir is Metame to this Meis Mitzvah, he's going to get Malchus for it, even though it's a Meis Mitzvah, because the Kohen is the one that's supposed to be Metame. Okay, so
you're also saying that even though there's no Isra over here, according to that Mandam,
yeah,
they still become Tamei.
Yeah, it becomes Tommy, for sure becomes Tommy. It doesn't
Not
change the
for sure.
Metzias.
I'm not for sure, because if you say that there's no wisdom, that means there's a lot to do. There's a lot to do it. So it's
Yeah,
not,
no,
so it's not
can't-
Tommy
can't-
either.
And your
Can't
straw
change.
also becomes tummy.
But you can't change the Metzias. But Tommy becomes...
He's supposed to do it.
Yeah. Okay, so now here the Mishnah brings the Svaras. So Amalem Rabbi Eliezer, so Rabbi Eliezer says to the Chachamim, Yitame Kayin, let the Kayin become Tameh, She'enim Mevi Karben al Tumasai. Because you see that the severity of the Kayin becoming Tumah is not as much as the Nazir. When he becomes Tameh, the Kayin becomes Tameh, he doesn't have to bring a carbon for his Tumah. V'al Yitame Nazir, the Nazir should not become Tameh, Shumevi carbon al Tumasai, because the Nazir, he has to bring a carbon when he becomes Tameh. So we see it's more stringent. Amrullah, now what now the Chachamim said, Yitame Nazir, She'en Kedushas Kedusha Seilam. Let the Nazir become Tameh because his Kedusha is not forever. Yitame Kayin, She'Kedushas Kedusha Seilam. Whereas the Kedusha of the Kayin is much more stringent because his Kedusha is forever. So here there's a discussion here in the Taisvis and the Rishonim regarding this, that it says on the Nazir that his Kedusha is not Kedusha Seilam. You could have a Nazir that's forever, if he accepts upon himself a Nazir is forever. So the answer, there's a few different answers that are set for this. One is that the Stam Nazir is not a Kedusha Seilam. Stam Nazir is 30 days. Another answer is even a Nazir that accepts upon himself Nazir is forever, but he's not a Nazir from birth. Before he was born a regular person, he became a Nazir later. A Kayin, when it says Olam, it means from birth, from the moment he's born, he's a Kayin. So therefore, that Kedusha of the Kayin is much stronger than a Nazir. Okay, so the Gemara will go through various different scenarios to discuss who should be the one that should become Tameh. Bishleime, now this lashon of Bishleime in the Gemara here is not like it usually is brought in the Gemara. Whenever the Gemara says Bishleime, it's sort of an introduction to a question. Here, this Bishleime is similar to what the Gemara many times says Pshita. The following halachas will be obvious, and that's over here. Bishleime, this is understood that Kayin Gadol v'Nazir, like we had in the Mishnah. If you have a Kayin Gadol and a Nazir that are walking on the way, and they both encounter a mes mitzvah, so Hai Sava Kayin Gadol Adif. One opinion in the Mishnah is that Rabbi Eliezer says that the Kayin Gadol has a higher level of, or actually the Chachamim say that the Kayin Gadol has a higher level of Kedusha, so therefore it's the Nazir that should become Tameh, and V'Hai Sava Nazir Adif. And the Rabbi Eliezer says no, the Nazir has a stronger level of Kedusha, so the Kayin Gadol should become Tameh. So that's the halach of the Mishnah. Now there's another case also, which is understood, and it's not a shaila. Meshuach b'shemen amishcha. If you have a Kayin Gadol that became a Kayin Gadol, how? He was anointed with the Shemen amishcha from the times of Moshe Rabbeinu. Now this Shemen amishcha from the times of Moshe Rabbeinu, Taisus here brings, lasted until almost the end of the first Beis HaMikdash, in the times of Yeshayahu HaMelech. So you have a Kayin that was anointed by this Shemen amishcha. Umerube begadim. Then you have another Kayin, a Kayin Gadol that did not get anointed by the Shemen HaMishcha, but he became designated as a Kayin Gadol just by the fact that he's wearing the special 8 garments of the Kayin Gadol. So both of them are walking down the road and encounter a mes mitzvah. Who should become Tameh? Meshuach b'Shemen HaMishcha adif. So the one that's anointed with the oil from the Shemen HaMishcha, it's actually in this week's parsha, right? Parshas Kisisa speaks about the Shemen HaMishcha. So he's the one that is on a higher level. He should not become Tameh. The other Kayin, the one that was not anointed with the Shemen HaMishcha, should become Tameh. What's the difference between these two? Really, both of them are a Kayin Gadol. There's only one difference between them. The Kayin that's anointed with this special oil, Mevi par haba al kol mitzvahs. When he does an aveda b'shegeg, he doesn't bring the regular carbon that you bring for a chatas b'shegeg. Usually you bring a keves, a seira, kisba seira, and the keva has to be a lamb or a goat. But this Kayin Gadol, when he does an aveda, he has to bring a pat, he has to bring a bull. Haba kol mitzvahs, for any aveda that he does b'shegeg, if it's an aveda that you chayav a chatas for. V'hilo merube begadim, but the Kayin Gadol that was not anointed with this oil, he's just wearing the 8 garments. Maybe he doesn't bring this special part. He brings a regular carbon for a chatas like any other yid. So we see that the Kayin, this Meshuach b'Shemen HaMishcha, is on a higher level. Okay, but just to stop a second on this, Taisvis over here and the Rishonim point out that this is very interesting. How could you have 2 Kainim Gedolim serving the Beis HaMikdash at the same time? The Gemara in Yuma, we spoke about this, impossible, right? The Gemara, they said, if you remember, there's a concept of Eva, that there's competition between them, or even Menatayra, you can't have 2 Kainim Gedolim. How does this happen? So usually, even by Yom Kippur, if a Kohen Gadol became Tameh, and therefore they appointed this Gan to become a Kohen, so what happens? After that Kohen becomes Toyer again, so that Kohen Gadol is out, and the original Kohen goes back, they don't both serve together. Taisus here says, and I'm not sure if it's based on the Gemara, I don't remember this in the Gemara anywhere else, Taisus says that if it's a situation where the Kohen that became Tameh, or Taisus says, let's say the Kohen became sick, or maybe this Kohen Gola, he was exiled, he left, and it was a long period of time, and the second Kohen Gadol served in the Beis HaMikdash for an extended period of time, then even when the first Kohen Gadol comes back, he doesn't push out the first Kohen Gadol. The only time the Gemara in Yuma says that the second Kohen Gadol, that is, the only time the Gemara says that you push out the second Kohen Gadol is if it was a short period of time. It was Yom Kippur. It was a few days that he was Tameh, but if it was an extended period of time, then the second Kohen Gadol does not get pushed out, and they serve together in the Beis HaMikdash, and that's the case that we're talking about over here. Okay, weiter the Gemara says another case. Meshuach she'ovar. What happens if you had a Kohen that was anointed, but he was ovar, meaning he's not serving anymore in the Beis HaMikdash? Umerube begodim. And then you have another Kohen Gadol, which is, he did not get anointed. He's only merube begodim. He has the garments of a Kohen Gadol, but he is the one that's actually serving. Okay, so now, on one hand, you have an advantage to the Meshuach. He's anointed by the special oil, but he's not yet serving anymore in the Beis HaMikdash. And you have the merube begodim, so he's not anointed, but he's presently serving the Beis HaMikdash. So which one is on a higher level? Merube begodim adif. So the one that is merube begodim, he's serving presently, he's on a higher level, he shouldn't become tameh. The merube begodim aved aveda. So the merube begodim is the one that's doing the aveda right now. The ilu meshuach sha'avar, but this one that was anointed and he is already avar, he's not serving anymore. Lav bar avedahu, he's not serving anymore in the Beis HaMikdash. So this case again over here is not so pashut to understand how this could happen, because usually when do you have a meshuach sha'avar? Why is he removed from serving in the Beis HaMikdash? So usually what happens is you have, like I said, one Kohen Gadol that was supposed to serve. Then came Yom Kippur and he became Tameh and he couldn't serve. So they appointed a second Kohen Gadol, and the second Kohen Gadol took over temporarily, but then when the first Kohen Gadol becomes fit again, so the second Kohen Gadol is removed and the first Kohen Gadol comes back. So the question is, what happened over here? The merube begodim is presently serving, which means the merube begodim was the first one. He was the original Kohen Gadol. The meshuach was the replacement, and then he's avar, and now they pushed him out because the original one came back. But the question is, why would the original Kohen Gadol only be a merube begodim? If they had the Shemen HaMishcha available, so then the original Kohen Gadol should be the one that's Meshuach b'Shemen HaMishcha, and the second one should be the one that's merube begodim. If it happened punkt in that time in history when Yeshayahu Melech, he's the one that hid the Shemen HaMishcha. This is the Shaila that Taisus and the Rishonim ask over here. Okay, you can look in Taisus. Taisus says,
why is it valid? I mean, it could have been the other way around.
no, it can't. Think about it, it can't. Taisus over here says that the only case it's possible is if there was 3 different Kainim, and Taisus explains how it's possible. You look into Taisus, you'll see. But the Pashtus, what it says there in the Gemara, is hard to understand. How do you have a merube begodim that was appointed earlier, and the later Kain is Meshuach b'Shemen HaMishcha? That doesn't really work, the Pashtus. Okay, let's see the next case. Gemara says, Ovar machmas kiruyai. If you had a kohen that was removed from serving on Yom Kippur because he was a balkeri, he had a tumah, which is an emission from his body. And then you have another kohen, which was a kohen gadol, Ovar machmas mumai, a kohen gadol that was removed because of a mum that he has. So that's it. He's not a kohen gadol anymore. So who is on a higher level? The one that only is only a balkeri, he's on a higher level. Why? The balkeri could become tahir and serve again tomorrow. But the kain that has a mum, so he can't serve anymore in the Beis HaMikdash. Okay, so the one that has a mum, he's the one that should become tamei. But now, after all of that, these are all cases that are clear. Now the question is, Ibayaluhu Meshuach Mulchame Uzgan. If you have a Meshuach Mulchame, which is also a Kayin, and he's also anointed, but he doesn't serve in the Beis HaMikdash at all. He's just anointed to lead Yidden out into the war, and the Psukim in Parshas Kiseitze says what he tells the Yidden when they go out to war. That's this Kayin. And then you have this Gan. This Gan is the Kayin that's designated to be the second on line in case the Kayin becomes Tami and Yom Kippur. So now both of these encounter a Tmei Meis. Hi, Minayu Adif. Who's on a higher level? Mashuach Mulchama Adif. Do I say that the Kohen anointed to lead Yidden in the war, he's on a higher level? The Chazil Mulchama, because he's fit to lead Yidden in the war. The Gemara will soon say, so he's needed for the Rabbim, for the whole Klal Yisrael. Everyone's relying on him for this. And this Gan, though, he's just a second in command, and the whole Klal Yisrael doesn't need him to that extent. Oidilme is Gan Adif, or maybe this Gan is on a higher level, the Chazil Aveda, because he was designated to serve in case the Kohen Gadol becomes Tameh, so he's closer to the Aveda in the Beis HaMikdash. So the Gemara brings a clear Braise. Tashma, the Tanya, we learned in the Braise, Ein Bein Mashuach Mulchama is Gan. There's no difference between the status of the Mashuach Mulchama and this Gan. The truth is, Taisus here points out there are other differences other than what it says over here, but here the Braise is focusing on this concept here. Ella, the difference is that if the Mashuach Mulchama and the Gan are walking on the way together, and they encounter a Meis Mitzvah, Yitame Mashuach Mulchama va'al Yitame Hasgan. The Mashuach Mulchama is the one that becomes Tameh, and this Gan should not become Tameh. So this Braise clearly says this Gan that could come to serve in the Beis HaMikdash, he's on a higher level. But on this the Gemara asks, what Tanya, but on another Braise it says, Mashuach Mulchama Kaidem Lizgan, that the Mashuach Mulchama is on a higher level than this Gan. So Mazutra answers, that's talking about something else. Le'inyen hachyaisai, when it comes to giving life to these two, Mashuach Mulchama Adif. Then the Mashuach Mulchama is on a higher level. Now, what does Hachyaisa mean? So there's different pirushim with this. Either Hachyaisa means Pasha to give parnasa, to feed, to give food. Who are you obligated to support first? The Mashuach Mulchama or the Gan? The Mashuach Mulchama, you have to support him first. And the Gemara will give the reason for this in a second. Or other Rishonim say the reason, what we're talking about over here is when you have a house that collapsed or so some kind of situation where it's a question of whose life has to be saved first, the Mashuach Mulchama or the Gan. The Mashuach Mulchama's life has to be saved first. And my time, what's the reason for that? The Talibei Rabbi, because the Mashuach Mulchama, all the Yidden need him. He leads Yidden out into the Mulchama. But Inyan Tumeh, when it comes to the level of to the Inyan of Tumeh, who has a higher level of Kedusha, for that I say Zgan Adif. The Zgan is on a higher level. And the reason is that Tanya, Rab Chanina ben Antignis Aimer, Lama Tiknu Zgan L'Kayin. What's the whole point of Chacham wa Mesakin that there should be the second in command to the Kohen Gadol? She'nira by Psul. If the Kohen Gadol becomes Pasul, so then the Zgan comes and serves in the Beis HaMikdash instead of the Kohen Gadol, so he's closer to serving, so he has a higher level of Kedusha. So again, the Mashuach Mulchama Rabim Tzrichim Loi, but this Gan is on a higher level of Kedusha. Okay, now the Gemara comes back to bring what's the source of this entire halacha that you can become Tommy to a Meis Mitzvah. Ad kan lei pligi ela b'kohen gadol v'nazir ki ka'azli b'hadi hadadi. The whole argument over here is if the Kohen Gadol and the Nazir are walking on the way together, who is the one that should become Tommy? Aval chad l'chodei, but the Kohen Gadol going separately, or the Nazir going separately somewhere, and they encounter a Tmei Meis, bar itmuye. Again. A Meis Mitzvah that is, yeah. Bar itmuye inon, so they're allowed to become Tameh to a Meis Mitzvah minan and mili. From where do I know this? So the Tana Rabbanan, we learned in the Braise, the sources, it says, Al kol nafshois meis lo yovai, that the Kohen Gadol should not become Tameh to any dead body. Why is the Pasuk saying this? If it's coming to say that when the Kohen Gadol encounters a mace that's not even a relative of his, that he shouldn't become Tameh, the Torah doesn't have to say this. Kal v'chaymer. It's a kal v'chaymer. Uma kohen hedyet shuhu metamel l'krayvim. A kohen hedyet is allowed to become Tameh to a relative, but ain't a metamel l'chaykim. But the stama mace that's not a relative, he's not allowed to become Tameh. Kohen Gadol she'enim metamel l'krayvim, so the Kohen Gadol that's not allowed to become Tameh to a relative, as the pasuk there says in the very same pasuk right afterwards, it says la'aviv le'imay lo yitama. So ain't din she'enim metamel l'chaykim. For sure, he's not allowed to become Tameh to any mace. So why does the Torah have to say I'll call nafshis mace lo yavai? Again? No, not a mace mitzvah. Not a mace mitzvah, right? As the Gemara is going to explain now, but. Now, Taisus points out that this whole kavachayim the Gemara is saying over here is really not necessary. The main point the Gemara is trying to say is, if the pasuk right here says la'aviv v'le'imay lo yitam, that he's even not allowed to become tummy to a close relative, a father and a mother, why does it have to say al kol nafshis meis, that anybody else not? So basically, after it says al kol nafshis meis, it includes everything. So when it's and then it says la'aviv li'imai, so both la'aviv and li'imai are extra. So elo, so therefore I have to say b'kroivi makasav medaber. When it says al kol nafshis meis, that includes even the close relative as well. So now, what do we learn out from la'aviv? La'aviv, when the Torah writes la'aviv, that's extra. So I say la'aviv v'deinim metame. Ha metamu lemeis mitzvah. The extra word of la'aviv comes to tell me that he does not become tamei to his father, but that's only in a regular situation. But if it's a situation of a meis mitzvah, then he could become tamei to the meis mitzvah. Okay, the next Gemara is a continuation. The Gemara will explain the li'imai, as I said, is also an extra word. What do we learn out from li'imai? As we'll see in Mitzvah Shem. Okay.